Alright, I'm getting ready to refresh the garden bed to put in my winter plants here. So I've pulled back. First of all, I took out all the plants. I had squash, tomato, a couple other things going on over here, mostly squash, but a lot of them, they all use a lot of nitrogen, a lot of nutrients, suck all the nutrients out of the soil. So it's time to replenish that, because if you think about throughout the course of the season, as you're harvesting squash and tomatoes and everything else out of these gardens, you're just pulling nutrients out. And so as you do that, it's important to replace the nutrients with at least as much as you have taken. So I pulled back the mulch and just kind of set it aside here, and I'll put that back on later. I pulled back the drip lines, and then I'm just going to amend the soil. I'm going to put some compost, worm castings, some blood meal, and bone meal. And I'll show you those products over here. Here they are. So I've got two different types of compost here. This one over here is a local compost, which is always good if you can find it. This is just a big box type. And then some worm castings. EB stone variety. There's several different varieties. And then my blood meal and my bone meal. I haven't used this type before, but this is what they had. It's called Stay Green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix that in to the soil. I also have some peat moss left over from another project, so I'll probably put some of that in too, just to help retain the moisture. So I'm going to start working on that now. And I'm just going to add it over here. Put it on the top. I'm not going to mix it in too much, just kind of mostly put it on the top layer. And then it should be good to go. Alright, so I got a pile of compost of two different varieties there. And then some peat moss. And I'm just going to break it up over the top here, into the pile, just to get it kind of mixed in. This will really help the seeds germinate because it holds some moisture in really well. So it's real important to use either peat moss or cocoa coir, just to help with the moisture retention. Okay, so now you can see we've got the compost spread along with the peat moss, and it's just kind of evenly spread through the area that we're working with here. And then next thing, we need to replenish the nutrients in the soil, the NPK value that I'm sure you're aware of. N stands for nitrogen, P for phosphorus, and K for potassium. And so for nitrogen, I'm going to use the blood meal down here. So you can see that that is 1400. So 14 is the nitrogen. Bone meal is going to be the phosphorus. That's got a 1,250, so that's a good source of phosphorus. But the struggle with organic gardening is usually the potassium, the K value. So I use this kelp meal, which helps. You can see that's got a value of 1.1 and 2. And then I also use the azomite rock dust, which has 0.2, but it also has other micronutrients in it. So the nitrogen is going to help with the leaf growth. The phosphorus helps with the root and the flowering and fruiting. And then the potassium is just kind of an overall health and function of the plant. So I use kelp meal, which I'm kind of low on today, so I'm going to use what I have here, and then I'm going to have to buy more and come back and put that in. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the worm castings. And so I'm just going to sprinkle a light dust over this. You don't need tons of this. I'm just going to sprinkle it around. while I'm out here, I'm going to add some to the other plants that are already existing as well. Spread that around. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is add my blood. This stuff stinks, by the way. It'll drive your dogs crazy if you got them. So I'm just going to do about 1 cup. Maybe a little bit less. Flip it around. And the bone meal, you need a little bit more. We'll do 2 cups of that. And then do kelp meal, I would do 1 cup, which I don't quite have. So I'll sprinkle around what I do have. I have to get a little bit more of that. And then finally rock it. I'm making 2 cups of rock dust. A little bit less than 2 cups. It's probably a good idea to wear a face mask when you're doing this. You can see how dusty this is. I don't think you'd be able to understand me. My face mask on. Okay, so now I've got that. So I'm just going to spread that around. And this will be ready for planting. This stuff stinks. That's okay. Okay, so now I've got all the soil prepped. I got the drip emitters back in place. So now what I want to do is I want to go and plant my seeds, because I'm not planting seedlings here. I do have a video I'll link below in the description where I show you some of the seedlings that I planted. You can see a couple here. I got these onions, but now I'm going to do some seeds, and I don't have any seeds. I didn't go out and buy any, but I have these left over from a couple years ago. These are Dinosaur kale seeds. This is my favorite kind of kale, and I want to have plenty of this over the winter. So if you look at these particular seeds, they're pretty small.
They look like squash bug eggs.
You know what they do? They look exactly like squash bug eggs. Hopefully that's not what they are. Okay, so now, since these are small eggs, you don't have to go, or small eggs, small seeds, you don't have to go very deep. So I'm just going to poke my finger in, and what I usually do is I poke my finger in at each of these drip emitters, and that will help with irrigation, getting water to them, so I don't have to come out here and do it manually as they start to grow. So I'm going to put about, since these are old seeds, I'm going to put probably about 4 or 5 in each one of these holes and hope that they germinate. I got quite a few of these left over, so I don't have to be too sparing with them. So I'm going to go through and do that right now, and I'll be right back. Okay, there we go. We're on the home stretch here. So I got all the seeds planted in those holes. You can see I forgot to cover a few of them up. So I'll do that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to water this down a little bit. And the key here, you don't have to do a deep water necessarily for these to get these to sprout. The key is to give them consistent moisture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this twice a day. I'm going to do this in the evenings, and I'm going to come out here in the mornings, every morning, and I'm going to do this. And hopefully in about 7 days or so, you should see some little sprouts coming up. So that's the plan. And that's how I prep my garden beds. And I'll do the same thing in the spring. I don't always put all the amendments in, but it's a good idea at least once a year to add the bone meal and that sort of thing. I almost always top off with compost because the beds will sink down, and so you got to add the compost back in. And then I like to do worm castings every time, but the bone meal, blood meal, and that I'll do probably once a year. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.